starting with the general fund, our current assets this year ended at $25.7 million compared to $25.2 million in the prior year. And our liabilities ended at $16.6 million compared to $16.3. So our assets increased $500,000 and our liabilities increased $300,000. And really, the majority reason for that is because we are required to make an entry to be in compliance with governmental accounting standards, a receivable and a deferral for the property taxes we're receiving this year. It has no cash impact. So really, things are very consistent from one year to the other. Overall, our cash balance went up $100,000. Looking at the fund balance of the general fund on the next slide, there's 4 components of fund balance. There's non-spendable, restricted, assigned, and unassigned. And our fund balance went from $8.9 million in the prior year to $9.1 million in the current year. So an increase of just shy of $200,000 in total. We do have some shifts within the different types of fund balance, but relatively consistent. Some of our restricted items, those are mostly categoricals, and some of those did increase really because of the pandemic and things that we were limited that we could or could not do. So we'll look at spending down some of those this year. And I should have said, just interrupt me if you have a question. Okay.
Tell me what special purposes is on the side. I think you told me before.
No, that's fine. So any special purpose that somebody like wants to earmark money for, we would abide by their wishes, right? It's not legally restricted, but if somebody says, hey, we really want this money to go to the cheerleaders, we really want this money to go to 5th grade, it would be those types of things.
Okay.
And we have a separate way to account for that in our accounting system so we can please the donors.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The early readers grant went down like 14 grand or so. It's a very small amount of grants.
So the early readers grant is a grant that we get every year from the Department of Ed. I think it's about $37,000, and Courtney gets very excited every year when we do it. Just timing of spending the money down. They try really hard to spend it in every single year, so all the kids get new books. Would that be a fair statement? Yeah.
And in 2020, would that have been high because of the pandemic?
Yeah,
The
we
school
didn't
closure.
close out the end of the year.
You didn't get to spend it.
There's a group of ladies that buy those books pretty much monthly. There's always orders coming in, so they wouldn't have bought anything at the end of the year before. So I had mentioned that there's different components to fund balance. So on the next page, there's a line graph that just kind of shows, like you asked what the assigned things were. So the dark red shows things that for one reason or another were either legally restricted or we choose to spend them based on somebody else's wishes. And then the light pink that's unassigned money. We can do with that as we feel fit. And that on average every year is about 81.5% of our fund balance. So that's good. We have some good money. The next slide, I'm going to highlight the general fund revenues and expenditures for the year. Our revenues in the prior year were $34.8 million, and in the current year they were $35.4 million, an increase of $521,000. And our expenditures went from $34.2 million to $35.2 million, an increase of $970,000. So our expenditures went up at a faster rate than our revenues did. And really, I would say the one thing that kind of jumped out at me was our sub costs were really high last year. So on average, our sub costs were maybe around $500,000. We were at like $728,000 to pay for subs last year. Looking at some of the individual line items, our supplies went up quite a bit. Our supply expense went up $600,000, and our property went up $200,000. That is really due to a couple of things. We bought a lot of elementary devices when the pandemic hit that normally we wouldn't have bought. We got a lot of grants historically that we've not received, and then a lot of PP&E supplies, and then even like our Edgenuity subscriptions and stuff would fall into that bucket. So most years, I'd say everything from one year is exactly the same. There's a few things that jump out that are different this year compared to the prior years. On the revenue pie chart, again, usually these numbers are exactly the same for year to year. Our federal funds revenue increased 1%. It might not sound like a lot, but it doubled. Our federal money that we received and we spent doubled from the prior year. And that was offset by property tax. That went down a little bit. Our property tax cash reserve levy was just less than that year. And then the next graph just kind of highlights that, how you can see the differences. Like if you look at the bottom, second one from the bottom, the federal funds, the light pink is fiscal year 21. And you can just see really from looking at the graph that the federal funds doubled compared to the prior year. Most things other than that are pretty consistent.
Is the ESSER money in there?
It is, yeah. I added a slide with federal funds this year too. I got the Philippines.
All right.
Super
Oh, it's the
exciting.
next one.
Question on the AE flow through, who
Yeah.
sets that rate for us to pay
The
the?
Department of Management.
Okay.
It's part of the whole balancing of the budget for the whole state.
Okay, so
So-
we just get told what we, okay,
And actually, we don't even touch the money. They do it all on their end.
okay.
But we're required to record a revenue for it and an expense for it.
Even though it never comes in.
Correct. Yep. Yep. So even though we're focused on the general fund, this probably wasn't the best place to throw this slide in because we had expenditures of federal funds that I put in here. I just found it interesting. Like I said, it doubled, but there are other funds that receive federal money this year. The food and nutrition program went from 1.2 million to 1.9 million, really because of the increased funds that were receiving through the free programs. And then the daycare got a grant just simply to stay open. Iowa Workforce Development was giving out money for that. We received $107,500 just for the daycare to continue to operate. And then there you can see all of the gear and ESSER and COVID money that we received as well. I can't see that slide, and mine might be, oh, this is on the expense side. I thought maybe I was out of order. So looking at the expenses, and the way things shifted in the general fund, we always talk about what our percentage of salaries and benefits are for the general fund. Last year, they were 84.1%. This year, they went down to 82.8%. I don't think that's really gonna stick. I mean, it's mostly because our other costs went up, right? We had increased costs due to COVID that maybe we won't continue to have at that high of a rate. But at least for the 1 year, they did go down a little bit. And then there was just small shifts in other things. Purchase services increased almost 1%. And then the next graph just again highlights those changes. So one other thing we always like to look at is the unspent authorized budget. So the first half of my presentation is more like a business standpoint. What's our revenues over our expenditures? But you know, we have this great school funding finance formula that they tell us what we're allowed to spend. So our maximum authorized budget over the last, since 2015, ranged from 34.7 million to 44.4 million. So our budget's increased $10 million since 2015. And in relationship to that then too, it would make sense that our unspent authorized budget increases as well. It was at 4.5 or 4.2 at a low, up to 6.6 now. And it averages about 13%. We're just over 15% this year. And it would be recommended to be somewhere around 15%, not to exceed 25. So our general fund is healthy. And on the next slide, we look at the solvency ratio, same thing, not to exceed 25%. And we're at 23% again this year, which is very comparable to last year.
So Joe, where does that rank with the rest of our state counterparts?
Well, you know, I always share that with you, and the state website has been down for over a week. And then even before they revamped the ISV website, and even a couple weeks ago when it was up, all of this data has not been put out on the new website. So I don't have that. If it comes out, I'll share it with you.
In the past, we are right in the middle.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
So let's say very good,
yeah.
very good.
Yeah,
I would
yeah, I
think
could have
so.
just answered the question, right? Fabulous. But I couldn't find the data.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about the general fund? So I have one slide on the other funds. I'll just kind of zip through all of them as quick as you're comfortable with. The management fund balance started at 2.5 million and ended at 3.1. You know, if my memory served me correctly, a couple of years ago, we were just uncertain with what we could use the management fund for. And I think legislation even talked about opening that bucket up a little bit. So when we set the budget, we did kind of put a little more funds in there maybe than we needed to. But this year that we're in right now, I didn't do that. So you won't see that go up quite as high. But we have a healthy balance in our management fund. The Pearl Fund is, the purpose of that is for the repairs and maintenance that we did at the Y, and for 1 year that was in existence, we accumulated $171,000. I would assume we would accumulate at least that much moving forward, because it's based on our assessed property tax valuations, which tend to go up a little bit. Our activity fund started at $460,000 and ended at $460,000. And what I'd say about the activity fund is they spend what they receive, right? So if we have an activity, you know, so pre-COVID, that account, we could have spent $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 in a year, but we had less activities, so we received less income and spent less money. But the balance overall stayed the same. Pebble went from 1.7 to 2.7, and really that's just the timing of when projects get completed, and we skipped a year in buying buses because we doubled those up. So that has built back up a little bit. And then the Y was at 4.8 and ended at 4.9 million. Or, well, it's not the Y
Safe
fund,
fund.
it's the safe fund, but we're
Yeah.
using it for, it's the Y fund this year.
Yeah.
And it will be going down virtually to zero. You know, it'll be pretty low by the end of this year, but I have good news about that here on my last slide. I know. The debt service fund always lingers around 170,000 every year. That's just the way we accumulate funds to pay principal and interest payments on our debt. The nutrition fund went from 965,000 to 1.4 million. Again, that is because of the free programs that are being offered. The other thing I would say about the nutrition fund is we are allowed to transfer funds to the general fund for like overhead costs and stuff, and so that amount that we get to transfer goes up because it's in a direct relationship to the money that we receive. So, and that's just a bonus for the general fund, I guess.
Would you say, Joe, that some of those costs have gone up though too?
Yeah, they
I mean,
have. Just not at the same rate though.
products, not
Mhm. Yeah,
found and such, yeah.
correct. The child care fund was at 156,000, and even with our $107,000 that we got in the federal grant, it dropped a little bit to 133,000. Just less participation for a while, but things are turning around. Student construction sat at 382,000. That's solely from the gains on all the sales we've had here to date. And the self-insurance fund stayed flat at 4.2 million.
Jill, for student construction, real quick, there's no cap on it. When you can get that loan, right?
Right.
We seeded that with about what, 60?
That sounds about right. Yeah. Okay, so then the other report that I have to file with the state in September is the special education supplement. I just have one slide with the revenues and the expenses. Our revenues decreased 223,000 from the prior year. Our weightings just went down. It's not unusual, it's not unexpected, it just depends on who we serve. And then on the next slide, our expenses went down 142,000. So not quite at the same rate, but again, it's all dependent on the cost of the program. We do offset on the next slide some of our costs to special ed with 2 federal programs that are available to us. We do participate in both of them. And we receive over $500,000 in revenue with all of the Medicaid billings that we do and the IDEA grant that we receive. So that's very helpful. Which which results in our special ed deficit of fiscal year 21 being close to $400,000. From the last 4 years, it ranged from 286 to 400,000, but for those of you that remember, I mean, 10 years ago, we were at almost $1 million, so, yeah, it's great. I did add one more slide that I don't normally have in my presentation, but it's weird having this meeting in, what, November as opposed to September, so just some highlights maybe for 21-22 that I was thinking about. So, our financial statement audit and our federal funds audit, they're both done, and they both went very well, so that's very exciting. It was kind of just different because we had so many new things going on. So that'll be reported to you in an upcoming quarter. Every November, we get what is called a one-time save catch-up payment. So we get save money every single month based on what they estimate our revenues to be. And our one-time catch-up payment historically, for as long as I've worked here, has been about $100,000. It was $435,000.
It is Christmas time.
I know, and I'm so excited. It's in the right fund and everything. I'm so excited. So
It's all going to the Y.
yeah, in November we got that.
That's right.
Online shopping.
There will be
Yeah.
a roof on the pool.
And then actually, even before we got that, our save revenues were budgeted to be up $324,000. So really, that revenue source is going to be up quite a bit. It's based on enrollment and spending. The calculation's just working out to our good.
We get that bill, like, for that 324, we get that like every other month.
Every month.
Every month.
Yeah. Yep. IPERS released that.
It's like
IPERS
having-
released that there's no.
It's like having an extra month.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like I'm on a cell phone. IPERS notified us in the state that there's no increase in that benefit payment, so no increased cost for the district into next year even, so that's good. October 1st enrollment that we used to calculate next year's budget was up 1.35%. Our net open enrollment students were up about 23 kids. I listed our federal money that we're working on spending over the next couple of years. So you'll still see a lot of federal expenditures coming through.
So,
And then,
so those are the dates we have to have the money spent by, can I take it?
those are the dates I pulled off the CASA this week, yeah. So I believe so. I've heard a couple different dates, but that's my understanding. And then, the legislative session did open up the use of flexibility, so we'll be looking at that a little bit as well. We can hear more about that. That's my report. Oh, I need an approval.
Yeah. Well, at first, is there any questions by anybody? Is there anything not on your report? I mean, it's good to look at the kind of highlights. Anything in the future that are watch outs? I don't think.
Not any gotchas, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm seeing a lot of positive things. It's kind of nice to feel like we're emerging from a couple, 18 months maybe of pandemic or whatever, you know?
I think we'll probably always have a little bit of differences for the next 2 years because we have the federal money, so the revenue's there, but we won't have the revenue, but we'll be expending it, so it'll look like we're overspending money
Catches
that
up.
it gets out. For a couple of years, or at least when that money disappears, there will be different reporting than we typically would have.
Well, it's a good certified annual report. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you for that report, Joe. It's good to
Good job.
hear some of the news. We know you're on top of it. All right, at this time, let's move into, before we go into our next meeting, let's end this one, but thanks, Don, for all his many years of service, and I've personally enjoyed working with you, Don. Been very enjoyable to work with, and gotten a lot done in your 8 years that you've been on.
I've enjoyed working with everybody.
I've enjoyed working with you too.
Thank the public for giving me those 8 years, and staff for all the good times we've had. So,
Yeah. Don't be a stranger to the community, we know you're around, and
Yeah, that's right.
still help out. But Would anybody else like to say some words at all?
I wanted to, from the get-go, you were a Y proponent, and I remember going up to Macokota with you a couple years before it even got any legs under it, and you and I went up there, and I want to thank you for your commitment to the community and your willingness to do it. I know it was a team effort, but it felt at times that you were spearheading it, and I appreciate that. Thank you, and the people.
That was early 14.
Yeah, that was
We're
early,
getting gray.
early 14 when, yeah, that's right. But it said we are gray. But
Some
yeah,
of us
I
don't.
remember going up there, and you had a real passion, and that I always say projects a lot of times get done when someone champions it. So I thank you for that.
Mark?
Just to say, Don, it's been a pleasure working with you here on the board, but more importantly, it's a great friendship that we've developed over these years. And, we started hanging out even after the first board forum I went to, and you're the first one to call me when I got elected last. So I really value our friendship.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Tracy.
Yes, Don, I've enjoyed working with you, and I really appreciate when I came on 4 years ago that you kind of helped guide me and gave me great advice and taught me a lot. So thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Molly?
Just in addition to what I said last time, thanks for all your service and what you've helped me learn as well. And I know you'll be busy continuing to help the community in other ways of bringing some important broadband and fiber and fast communications to our community. So you're definitely going to continue to have a massive impact on the community. So thank you.
I ordered new tires for the Jag, so,
Thanks,
Oh,
all.
good. Thanks, Molly. That's nice.
It was
Glenn?
very different at the state this year. I enjoyed walking around with you, and there were some people that asked where you were. And I appreciated you always taking care of that extra effort on boards and whatever. And we'll have to find somebody to continue that. Thank you. And you're not going anyplace, so
Nope.
we're still
Going out to dinner in a little bit.
That's okay.
Yes, okay, that's nice. Don?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that the public doesn't know what Don has done over the last 8 years, or any board member. Everybody sees what's happens here, but there's so much behind the scenes. So we're at the board convention, and Don received an award from the school board convention for all the different meetings and things he attended in the last year. I know a lot of people don't know how many hours he spent on the legislative committee with the Iowa School Board Association to help develop what we were going to be fighting for in the upcoming session. And going to the different other meetings. We just went to the personnel meeting together just this month. And so you accumulate points. But when the executive director comes up to you and says, hey, we're really, really sorry Don didn't win, and we want to make sure you thank him for all the time and effort he volunteered to our organization. And so we wanted to make sure to pass that on. So thank you.
It came from Lisa.
That came right from Lisa, the executive director. And then just if you think about the 8 years, I started to jot down the why would have been a big one for me. You mentioned too your driving force with the why, but a lot of people don't know all the committees you're on where your business experience was brought to us. Whether it's healthcare committee or any of the negotiation, things like that you're able to bring a perspective because of all the experience that you've had. And I don't know of anybody who's faster with numbers than you. You are impressive on how quick you can calculate.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how many times, even before Jill and I are heading back and he's already going, well, that's a 2.2% back. And I'm like, oh, we're gonna go do the math anyway. But he was always right, even just the other day mentioning the Amazon at 1.83 million, that'd be 15% of what our current valuation is. Like, how do you even do that? It's like he doesn't even blink and he gets it. And so there's just so many things like that in the 8 years, and the district appreciates it. Here is a plaque, 8 years, and a lifetime pass from the School Board Association. I want to make sure and give you that. And then I want to keep that permanent card. But thank you for all your years. We sure appreciate it.
Yeah, it's just been a good. This is from all of us, Don, and we all cite it, and it's to express that you made in recognition of your commitment, your dedication, and consideration of others. I think that's as important as anything. Your leadership role in the North Scott Community School District Board of Directors has been invaluable, and you brought a wonderful perspective, and again, consideration of others. You always put other people first. Definitely our kids, and we saw it time and time again throughout the 8 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think it's time for me to go, and Frank.
Well, we'll take a, we'll just take a 5-minute break.
5-minute break.
Congratulate you before we
Do I
go
need
to
to
the next
adjourn?
meeting.
My wife said it might be politically incorrect if I said free at last, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And say my Monday night is open for dinner here in a little bit, but anyway, just joking. And thank you, everyone. Thank you. I very
Thank you,
much
John.
appreciate that. So
So much.
it's all nice, and it'll go up nicely in my office at home. So 8 years is a long time, and again, thank you to the public for giving me that time to serve. Really appreciate it.
I think one more motion.
All right.
Oh, I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes for adjourn. Thank you, Don.
5-minute break.
5-minute break.
A lot of work.
Thank you. Good. Thanks. Oh, no, I missed. No, sorry. How you doing?
Next to the newbie. Hey! Hey, buddy! Doing great. We're gonna be friends.
Katie, are you ready?
Yes.
Tell me when. Not sworn in yet.
Right. Like, good idea.
Ready?
Yep.
All right, I'll call the 2021 annual organizational meeting to order. First, we have the oath of office. Tarina will give the oath of office to our 3 elected board members.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties as a member of the Board of Directors of North Scott Community School District as now or hereafter required by law? Do.
Thank you. All right, first up is the election of the officers. So this year on your sheet is a ballot with all 7 names. The first thing we need to do is ask any board member who does not want to be considered for the office of president. So if we just go down, Glenn? Molly? No. Tracy?
No.
Mark? No. John?
No.
Frank? No. Joni?
Yes.
Yes.
We
Seeing that we
would've been in a
see-
movement.
seeing that we just
No.
have one, if there could be a motion for Joni Dipper as president.
Make that motion.
A motion by Glenn, a second by John. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. I'll turn the meeting over to Joni.
Well, first of all, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it to serve as president every year. Let's,
Oh, sorry, we're gonna swear Joni in as president.
Ooh.
I made that same mistake last year. I told Rita, do not let me do that again.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties as a member of the Board of Directors of the North Scott Community District as now or hereafter required by law?
I do. Thanks, Trina.
All right, now,
Okay. Okay, now, I'd like to do the same ballots for the vice president. Let's go down and see who's interested in that. Who is not interested, ask, or, please say if you are not interested. Glenn?
No.
Molly?
No.
Tracy?
Yes.
Mark?
No.
John?
No.
And Frank?
no.
Okay, thank you. So, at this point, we will announce that the results. Tracy Lindemann is now the vice
Go ahead, have a
president.
vote, though.
Oh. Okay, let's have a. all in favor?
Motion?
Yeah, let's have a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion, second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Tracy Lindemann is now the vice president.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yes, sworn in.
thank you, Trina.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties as a member of the Board of Directors of the North Scott Community School District as now or hereafter required by law? I do.
Good. Thank you, Trina. Thanks, Tracy. All right, let's move on to declaration of meetings.
So included in your packet is the meetings that were approved earlier this year before we started the year. So we're just looking for a motion and a second approval to continue our meetings.
Move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
So Joe, those dates haven't changed since the previous.
No, nothing's changed. Everything's always subject to change, right? So you can always make.
I just want to make sure
movements
I
and stuff.
caught it because I went through and grabbed it from my calendar.
Yep, it's the same that we approved in June of last year.
Good
Don't want to
question.
show up in the wrong spot.
Good question, Mark. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to, now we will do the appointment of legal counsel.
Make the motion for Lane and Waterman to be our appointment for legal counsel.
Okay,
I'll second that.
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. motion passes. Is there any questions anyone has? Yes.
Do we skip board committees?
Committee, we'll come back to that. I don't see it in the
I
packet
don't see
though.
that. When do you want to go
Oh,
It's just right now.
oops.
through that? Okay, any questions about, our legal counsel for the year? Okay. Let's, you want to
Just keep going on, because we don't have a committee. If somebody actually has a copy of it.
Has the standard break.
Oh,
Right,
So
of
let's go back to
course.
the committee.
he's already getting
So-
bonus points.
Thank you.
Okay, now the board committees.
So for board committees, we have,
We don't vote on this, though. We don't.
I just need names for it, then we can do approval for the overall committee. So finance committee last year was John Maxwell, Joni Dittmer, and then we need a replacement for Don Wilmot, or if John or Joni would say they didn't want to be on that committee.
I'm great being on it.
I am
Did you
too.
want to be on it?
I don't, sorry, I need to go back to look at the committees, yeah.
Over here, you want to pass that down? I have one.
Or, I'm sorry.
We could wait if you
Who
want.
expressed interest in it?
Frank did too.
Oh, go ahead.
Liability insurance, that is all of the EMC, it's not health insurance.
Right.
So Mark was on that, Joni, and then Don was on it, so replacements needed for Don. Anybody? I will certainly fill in there, yes. Take that one. The facility committee, we have John, Glenn, and Mark, the three, all
I'm
three.
willing, I want to serve.
Okay on that one?
Can
Policy.
you switch that up a little bit? I've never been on it, and I had some interest in being in it. Or unless you want to add four, or.
Put four on it.
Yeah, we post the meetings, so we could have four on it.
Okay. Oh,
That'd be good.
okay.
Okay, Molly, you want to be added?
Yeah, that'd be great, thank you.
Yeah.
For that matter, anybody can come.
Yeah, you could always come and, to any meeting. Remember, any committee meeting, a board member can come, but they sit in the audience or participate, so we don't have a quorum if it wasn't a posted meeting.
But those are.
These are all posted meetings, so, yeah. So policy committee, we have Joni, Tracy, and Mark,
I'll stay on that.
I'll stay.
okay. Public relations / communications, Molly, Joni, and Mark.
I'll stay on that.
Okay. The city conference board, we have Joni and Tracy, which is the president, vice president, I think is automatic on that one. Delegate assembly, this is the one that we talked about, would be interested in that? Anybody else interested in that? Easy now. And then that automatically jumps to the legislative one typically too, is that all right? Yep. All right.
Did you say?
The health insurance reserve, that is our health committee made up of all representation on our health. And so last year was Tracy, Joni, and Molly. Any changes for that?
I'll stay on
Okay. Interest-based, on here it's IDB, but interest-based problem solving is what we call it now. We had Mark, Joni, and Molly. Is there any changes for that committee?
that. I think Tracy
I
was
was on that.
Tracy was on that.
Tracy, instead of who?
Instead of Joni.
Instead of me.
Instead of Joni, thank you.
Yeah, I'm fine on
Anyone
that.
stay on that?
Stay on that.
Everybody else want to stay on it? Okay. And we don't have an advocate, that's the National School Board Association, we haven't had that in the past. Curriculum Cabinet, Tracy's been on that in the past, is there, who would like to be on that?
I will continue to do it unless somebody else wants to.
Frank said he would, we could rotate that around too.
And we can have three on it.
But you
yeah.
could have up to
We
three
could have
too.
three.
Oh, okay,
So Frank
so
was-
maybe Frank and I.
Okay.
I'd like to be on it too. Just
Okay.
to kind of include me in the loop. I know it's
Sure.
means during the day.
Add
It is a
one.
daytime meeting, so, yep.
One question, can I, the sheet I have says, the insurance for the general liability property, you don't have that. You
That's-
didn't say my name right down there. This is maybe-
Liability, I said, it's Mark, Joni, and Frank.
Okay.
Yep.
This sheet I have.
Is that sheet wrong? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you want to stay on that, or-
I haven't been attending.
No.
So no, it's
It's
Yeah.
not.
I'll do it off, I got a sheet now, we'll get it, Trina and I will get that updated right then.
Okay.
And so then, and then it's just president, vice president, I think we got them all now?
Yeah.
Okay. So a motion to approve the committees for the 2021-22 year.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Any other comments about that? Now, there's a lot of other committees that aren't as formal that, you know, we do throughout the year. We just will.
Yeah, there's some committees
Joe's
that
good
are
about
us, but
budgets.
board members pay attention to.
Right.
It's a great example, that's really.
Ag Center.
Right, so, yeah,
And anybody can attend
different
those.
building projects. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
All right.
Thanks for everybody volunteering. Now let's move on to review of board policies.
So annually, and we've already done them once annually, so this is just part of the annual meeting. This is reviewing policy 211-71R, rules of order of regulation, 503.1, student conduct, 505.9, parent and family engagement, 606.9, that's our insufficient classroom space. That's the open enrollment one. If we started to have a discussion on that on the policy committee, so there was a change, it would still come back. It's just, you're re-looking at it right now as a board, so, by law.
Okay. Any questions from anyone about this?
Joe, how often do you go through the policy? I've been out of it for a little bit.
It's one 6-year rotation. So you go through the full, and then we are also a member of the School Board Association's primer. So like right now, I have new ones that are put on hold, waiting to see if OSHA actually, that law gets through, or OSHA still does it, then there will be policies immediately we'll have to pass. If it doesn't, if it just ends up not being a law or part of OSHA, then we won't have to worry about it, so. So we end up lately, because of COVID, we probably have policy committee meeting about once every 2 months, we're generally once, maybe 4 times a year. A lot of work to do on
Got
policy.
a big backlog.
Yeah. A lot of changes every time, well, you know, after a session, every law change, for education causes a policy change. There's been a lot of them, like, yeah.
There's some that we have to review every year.
Correct, these
Right.
3 at the annual meeting, and then there's a whole list that we do at the very beginning of the year. It's for publication, yeah.
That's a good point.
Yep.
And things come up through the year too. Okay, so, okay, any other questions? Everyone? Yeah.
I make a motion to review the board policy.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Approval of booster groups to operate concession stands.
Just our annual approval of the athletic, music, and drama, do our concession stands.
I make that motion.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Any other questions about that?
Just one comment, I know the officers for all of those, music, athletic, drama, they spend a lot of time, and, I don't know if we ever thank them, but really appreciate, I've worked with some of them, and I know the time and energy they put in, that provide great things for our kids, so, couldn't do a lot of things, without them, so just wanted to.
It's true. That's
Yeah,
good.
very true.
Very good, Molly. You're right, absolutely right. Need to praise them. Thank you. Okay, naming of official newspaper.
Staying in the
Who will
renaming
that be?
North Scott Press, official newspaper.
I don't
Can I
know
make
yet.
a change, recommend? No, I'm sorry.
Way to make a splash, Frank.
Speak.
Should we go down that?
Going down that road.
Should we go
Right?
down that?
Convince us, Mark. No.
Make a motion naming the North Scott Press as the official newspaper.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll do it for another year. Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Okay, let's do approval of the equity report.
So I did send out, just in case there were questions ahead of time, because Erin is here. Now, Erin is, a small part of her job is our equity coordinator for a variety of different things. One of the things her responsibility is to run the report, which is just run from the state's website, edit site. So I wanted her to be prepared in case you have. But if you have a question, even if you didn't call it in, we just may say, hey, we might get back with you if she didn't get a chance to know the answer. So, but it's our annual report that we have to do. The state tracks that data, the same as you'll see on the next one from Shane. It's included in your packet.
Make a motion to approve the equity report.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Any questions or comments for Erin? So approval of the high school course enrollment data, and that's Shane.
So Shane's here tonight too, in case you had any questions. So I think he actually has 2 years worth of reports, because remember last year when we had to go do this, the state didn't even have the data to give us due to COVID and other things. So he went ahead and pulled up 2 years worth of reports that you weren't able to see last year. And again, it's included in your packet. If you have any questions, he's here to answer.
I do want to explain it a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's 3 tabs at the bottom. It's 2021, which is, it's always a year behind. But for the college, you guys had asked a couple years ago to try to get the college in there. The state still doesn't pull it that way, so I have to thank Al Nelson, because he had to go individually from course to course. Unfortunately, it's this year's data in there, so it's just for comparison purposes. I'm hoping that if we go to another information system, it'll be a little easier than that, because it's really, to break it down by kid is a little more difficult. But Al did it, so I'm very appreciative of that. And then as you can see at the top, the row 1, I just highlighted, that's what our average percentages are for diversity as well. So you can see, hopefully, we're kind of comparable as you go down. You know, if we have 49 or 48.9% females, we would love that to be all the way down. But of course, there's always some discrepancies with that. But we continue to try to do better and better with that.
Thank you, Shane. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Shane, I don't know if this is where, what percentage of our kids are taking college classes compared to last year to this year? I know you probably have that on top of your head.
Well, we usually break it down by seniors, and we're last year at 95%, and I haven't broken down by seniors yet this year because Eastern Iowa has to send us that towards the end of the year once we get our spring in. So I'm guessing we'll be higher than 95%, but that's where we currently are.
Eastern Iowa's report from last year will be coming out on like the number of credits our kids take. We rank number 1 because we focus on career pathways, we focus on having partnerships and having college courses versus AP courses.
So CTE classes would go under.
Yeah, career technical ed, you know, our welding, anything that's giving them a credit towards certificate, towards a 2-year, towards a 4-year. It is impressive. It is one thing we can brag about, and that's due to Shane's leadership to ensure that we hire the right staff, we can teach them, and we work it out with Eastern Iowa to make sure they get accepted and be able to teach it. Sometimes we got to fight for it, but we are number 1 in the AA.
We're actually bringing a report on it in January.
I was gonna say, I
So,
think it's-
oh, that's, well, I'm still in your thunder, sorry.
We can't hear that enough. That'll be good. Good question, Frank. Okay. Any other questions?
I make a motion to approve of the high school courses enrollment data.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Shane. Now we got through the organizational part of the meeting. Let's move on to tonight's meeting. Approval of consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Any questions about that? Okay. Let's move on. It's the bills. Jill?
Thank you. This evening I have $737,672 worth of bills presented for approval for payment. The items I have to highlight are a payment to the Republic companies for $17,429. That's for continued district LED upgrades. A payment to Bethany for Children and Families for $2,160 for school-based therapy services. And a payment to West Music for $2,200 for September and October music therapy sessions. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Any questions anybody has? Okay. Motion.
Motion to pay the bills.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Any further comments? Okay. Let's talk about a good part of the meeting, the recognition.
So we have testing results. Congratulations to the crew of Bertha, the beautiful typewriter girl. The Iowa chapter select performance. They'll be heading to the International Testing Festival in June to represent Iowa on the international theater stage. If you didn't get a chance to see it, it was very good play. Congratulations to our Tech Challenge team for their first place in Win Iowa Thespian Festival. Special shout out to Kale Rolfe for placing first in light game. And special shout out to Kale Rolfe and Michael Kente for their first place with a leg, a platform. With a leg, a platform. Congratulations to Caitlin Wood for qualifying for solo musical theater for the 2021 International Thespian Awards. Swimming results. We had 3 swimmers who swam at state. Grace Beach, Lee Payton, and Carly Wolf. And I know Grace and Leah were also on the stands in the relay team for 6th place. North Scott, we have always sent down some very top swimmers that have helped them in the state. So congratulations to those 3. Congratulations to all the swimmers.
So to continue Don's legacy, we'll have some North Scott swimmers.
So yes. And then congratulations to Grace and Leah for their all-conference recognition too.
That's great. Is this your granddaughter?
Yeah.
Right? Granddaughter. Yeah, what I thought it was. Yeah. Talented individual.
One thing we might be missing on this, maybe you had it the last, I had the opportunity to go to the all-state music festival this weekend, and it was fabulous. We had, I think, over 20 kids there. I think it was 19 in the choir, a couple in the orchestra, and 1 in band. It was a 3-hour concert. It was
that in Ames,
really
right?
well
Ames?
in Ames. Very well attended. It was their 75th festival, so
It's on TV too.
it will be telecast PBS on Thanksgiving Day. I think it's at 7:30.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you didn't see it, so
Yeah, last month we recognized that.
yeah, that's what I said.
Very
It
well.
was,
Yeah,
yeah,
thanks for
it was
bringing
well
that
worth
up.
the time. Yep, there's-
That you went.
Thank you. Yep.
That's nice. Okay, thank you. Now let's move on to the committee updates, and we do have a communication committee report.
Yeah, we had a committee meeting, so we put a written report in there. If there's any questions, or if Katie wanted to add anything, she's more welcome to do it. But after, we always try after a board committee meets to keep all board members updated, to put at least a short report in the board agenda for you.
Anything you'd like to say, Katie?
No, unless you have any
She's-
questions.
How are the videos coming that we talked about?
We took some great footage last week. So we have the narration piece done for the first video, and we were in 2 classrooms last week, a kindergarten classroom at Ed White and a 2nd grade classroom at John Glenn, and I can't say enough about how great the students and the teachers were, and the administrators, for everyone who set it up. It's a real collaboration. We try not to interrupt their day too much. And I think we succeeded in that. We tried to be in and out, but we got some great footage. Bernie and I are now brainstorming about other places we can use some of this footage beyond
The purpose of the videos,
these
just for
videos.
everybody else.
Yeah.
These videos will sort of highlight what makes North Scott great. Things that a lot of us know, but maybe many of our community stakeholders or folks outside of the North Scott district might not know. And we think they'll be really multi-use. We see them as helping folks choose to move to our school district or send their children here. We see them as informational for parents in our own district who simply may not know about some of these programs, whether they're some of the pathway programs in high school, but maybe all their kids are in elementary school. But just to give them a deeper understanding about what our school district looks like from pre-K to post-graduation. So that's really the purpose of this. I think it'll snowball, but we're off to a good start.
Thank you for
Last,
doing that.
last week was Apprentice Week too. You did a press release and
Yeah.
went to Eckhart. Thanks for setting that up. It was
Yeah.
good to see the.
It was, Dave Linenbrink was awesome, was available, had reached out to his contact at Eckhart. We had some students there, and WQAD came out and ran a really nice piece, took some video footage, and North Scott Press was there as well, of course. And it was really well received. So I was on the phone this morning thinking about kind of taking that a little bit wider beyond just welding, talking about all of our pathway programs and figuring out how we can get that out to our media as well.
One of the things the gentleman said, I can't remember his name. Eckhart. No, Eckhart has a Travis or?
Yeah, Travis
Is it Travis?
Turner. Maybe?
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, so we have, somebody who graduated that's welding there, we have somebody who's in school yet welding there, and they're also hired somebody not for, the welding program, but a laborer there. And his comment was that just the quality and caliber of students that are, that have come, are just respectful, hardworking, so it was really good to hear across the board that they appreciate and really love having those kind of students there just because of that demeanor, hard work, and work ethic. So
Nice, thanks Molly, thanks Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
And it does tell us our story. We have so much to tell, so prideful of what we do. So this will be exciting.
It's really a fun project.
Snowball.
It's work, but it's really fun.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
For that report, very good. So tonight we're here at Alan Shepard, and they've got a story to tell of all the wonderful things they're doing, and they're going to give a little presentation on the special education programming.
And thank you. We know this is
Yes.
a different night, which tends to be here every year, but thank you for sticking around for the extra hour in order to
Yes.
get to this point. We sure
Thanks for being
appreciate
here.
it. So, Jan, we'll let you do the introductions.
Yeah, so, every year we get you guys come, and I always try to think of something that we could share to the board that might just be some new learning or maybe something that hasn't been highlighted in a while, and so you go back to telling our story. One thing that makes Alan Shepard a little unique compared to the other elementary buildings is some of the special education programming that we offer at our building, and so we have a lot of amazing students, staff members that help support that programming, and I really want to take tonight to highlight some of the hard work that they do. And it's these teachers here, we have a lot of aides in that program who aren't here tonight, but thank them for what they're doing, and then just some amazing kids that bring so much to our school. So I want to introduce the ladies that you're going to meet tonight. We have Mrs. Tara Christensen. She's right here. She's one of our special education teachers. We have Miss Stephanie Doherty, Chris Montanese, and then joining us in her second year here is Lindsay Smith. She works for the AEA, but kind of wears a couple different hats in our building. She's our speech language pathologist, but she's also a member of the assistive technology department for the AEA, and so she does a lot to help our students here at Alan Shepard as well. And so each one of them are going to take a little part in our presentation, kind of zoning in on our special education programming that we have here. So I'll kind of give the quick overview. So every building in the district offers resource support, and we do have two wonderful special education teachers here in our building that are providing that, but I wanted to focus on the programming that these three ladies help cover, which does encompass students from all over the district come to our building. So we have students in K through 6 from all around the district that come here for their homeschool for these services. So in that program right now we currently have around 20 students, and that has our 3 full-time teachers, and we currently have 11 aides in that program. Some are full-time, some are part-time. And our goal of our level 2 and 3 special education program is to provide the best educational experience for all students in their least restrictive environment. And so we're going to kind of highlight some of that stuff and have Lindsay go first. She's going to talk a little bit some about the collaborative services that she helps push in the classroom with our teachers.
So these are some of our core beliefs that we just bring to the table when we work with students. So we presume that there's potential in every student and that all students communicate, can learn, think and feel, and they all deserve our best. So they have a variety of needs. There's a lot of kids. Some kids are verbal, some kids are nonverbal, some kids use a combination of verbal speech and what we call AAC, which stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. And those needs require a lot of collaboration between all of us and some creative goal construction. We kind of need an all hands on deck approach from our paras and our gen ed teachers and our special ed teachers. These kids need all of our attention as much as we can give them. So here are some pictures of our students and staff in action. One of the mottos I try to instill in our staff is you have to speak AAC to teach AAC. So you have to use their devices to communicate with them so they learn how to use them as well. And we introduce AAC when a student's verbal speech is not enough to meet their daily communication needs. So that could be if a student is unintelligible or if they have a low vocabulary, we would be looking at AAC as a means for communication. And there's low-tech AAC like this board here where there's just pictures of symbols that they can point to communicate. And then there's high-tech AAC, like the device there that you see, that's a communication app on an iPad. And that is a speech generating device, so it speaks when they touch the buttons. And then here's a picture of one of our activities, and there's a little video you'll get to watch. The prompt was, raise your hand if you like pie. She said, I like whipped cream. I like pie. You smile, that makes me think you like pie. And then he said pie.
Yeah, so the volume's not very loud there, but he does get it at the end.
Yeah, so I modeled I like pie, and then I said I think you like pie, and then he said pie. Here's another example of something that went on during that lesson. He's typing P-U-M-P-I-N on his keyboard, and then the predictive text of pumpkin came up, so he selected that, and then he selected pie to share that he was guessing that the picture was pumpkin pie. So a lot of needs, a lot of variety of skills. Some kids are typing, some kids are talking, some kids are doing a combination. So we need everybody here to help meet their needs.
Another thing that we do is alternative assessment. Alternative assessment is for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. That's only about 1% of the population, so not a very big percent. Here is one of our guidelines to help us decide if a student is eligible for alternate assessment. It promotes a fair measure of student knowledge of the Iowa core. And to be eligible, you need to have a significant cognitive disability. You need to receive instruction on the Iowa core essential elements. And you need to require intensive, direct, individualized instruction with substantial support. And if you say yes to all three of those, then you can qualify for alternate assessment. What does not qualify you are things like having a disability or a label, poor attendance, expected poor performance, the percent of time that you receive special education, expected low achievement level, or anticipated behavior during testing. None of those would allow you to qualify, so you have to be those three to qualify. There are two assessments that Iowa uses to measure the achievement of students that participate in alternate assessment. The dynamic learning maps, they start at 3rd grade and they go through 11th grade. They are all year long instruction that's embedded into daily instruction. And it assesses English language arts, math, and science. And that, again, that's for 3rd grade through 11th grade. And it's also computer-based, so they are tested on the computer. Another one is that early literacy, which is ELAA. And that is through progress monitoring, and it's K through 6, so those 3rd through 6th graders get double tested. There are 6 different scales that we progress monitor on, and we do the progress monitoring through work samples, anecdotal notes, videos, photographs, or any kind of performance data. And then on the next slide, here's just an example of one of those scales. This is the first scale, and it's can a student identify, answer questions about, and use details from a story to understand the main or central ideas. So you can kind of see here where it's the very lowest, they're emerging, maybe you're doing some errorless teaching, just getting them to point to something or touch something with guidance and support, all the way to doing it with familiar text to independently answering who, where, what, and why questions. So kind of just to show you the progression of an independence as a reader.
So the reason we wanted to point that out tonight is you might notice like we have our FAST assessments or our ISASP assessments. Those don't necessarily fit the needs of every student. So students who might qualify for alternative assessment, we track their data just a little bit differently. And so that's through these assessments that our teachers do for them.
Do we all those, Chad, or is that provided by like state level?
Well, so some of them are provided through the state level, but some things can be more like the work we're already doing to show progress. So there is a continuum there, kind of depending on the age of the student and then what they depending on, so going back to that 3rd through 6th grade one is a little bit more prescribed, where the K through 3 can be a little bit more teacher chosen. And then Tara, do you want to kind of talk about, so we talked about the communication, a little bit about the assessment. And most of our students in our programming, we talk about having an adaptive behavior goal or some social skills instruction that those students are working on to help them not only be successful in the classroom, but in life and beyond. And so Tara is going to talk a little bit about what some of those instructions look like and things she's doing in her classroom.
Yep. So the zones of regulation, so every morning when my students come into the classroom, they have to express how they're feeling. And so they take their clip off every morning and clip it on the blue zone, the green zone, the yellow zone, or the red zone. And this can change throughout the day. So the blue zone is sad, sick, tired, or bored. And at the beginning of the school year, they have to figure out what can calm them down or what can help them in each zone. So some examples for the blue zone, some students came up with is blanket, lay down, color, or music. The green zone is you're happy, you're feeling good, you're focused. So right there, you're in the classroom, you're doing great, you're with your friends. The yellow zone, you're excited, you're silly, you're worried. Some examples the friends came up to do throughout the day if they need to calm their body, if they're excited, is jumping on the ball, going for a walk, and talking to an adult of why they're feeling silly or how we can calm their body down. The red is they're frustrated, they're mad, they're scared about something. And this is where we utilize Star, the therapy dog, where we take Star for walks, or Star just comes into our classroom. And like in 2 minutes, they are out of that mad zone. I will say Star has been amazing this year. Some other examples that help our students is just squeezing fidget balls. But I will say Star has been the best thing ever this year. So, but again, the students can clip from each zone throughout how they're feeling. For example, if they're in the red zone, after Star comes in, they're back in the green zone. So we clip their zones throughout the day. So we use that in my classroom to just allow us adults and their peers of how they're feeling. And if they forget to do it, and I don't notice, they're on each other about, you forgot to clip how you're feeling. So we use this throughout the day. And then for my social skills group, this helps guide me of what I'm teaching throughout the year. So if I don't get to it in 2 weeks, or if it's something we need to work on, we'll work on it longer for social skills. And if a student needs something in particular, I'll work on it one-on-one with them. And what I use for social skills, I use social stories. And these are just some examples, like time for school year. I read this to them, or eating at lunch. When I'm upset. So these are just some examples that we use, that we go over. Otherwise, we just use fictional stories. We role play, which the kids love, and they love when I do it, because I'm not very kind, just to give them examples of what peers can do outside of our classroom. We use activities, we use worksheets, we use everyday speech, which the district did purchase, and they love that. We use games, we use videotaping, and a lot more. And then every Friday, we have game day, which allows them to work on turn taking, winning and losing, and just working with different friends, because they don't get to work with the same peer. So it allows them to use these skills in the general ed room, so they're ready to use all these skills we've learned in the classroom. So, that's what I have.
Yeah, and a lot of times those are some built in, and they line up with like the student's IEP, especially if they have an adaptive behavior
Yep.
goal that they're working on improving. And so those social skills instructions really tie nicely into that. I think my favorite is when you do the role play, but you like model the what not to do, and then you have to.
Yes.
Those are always fun. The kids
Yes.
enjoy those a lot. They think
Yes,
it's
and
silly
the
when
parents
the
like,
teacher.
yes, when we take videotapes of that. Yes.
But just an example, some pictures of the kids doing some of those activities and working together. So one of the things that I believe makes our programming amazing is inclusion, and that's our number one goal is to try to have inclusion for all students, that they're with their general ed peers as much as possible where they can be successful. And to do that, a lot of times we rely on our aides to support our students into the classroom. And so Mrs. Doherty was going to talk just a little bit about some of the support our aides provide for our students. So,
first of all, I want to say that we really appreciate our staff, our paraprofessional staff. They are amazing, and we wouldn't be able to be where we are now, without them. So we appreciate that. Our aides allow our students to go into the classroom to be with their peers as much as possible. So, for instance, all the specialist classes, library, art, music, PE, they go with their peers, their grade level peers in most cases. They also go into the guidance classes, which is now called SEL. Social studies and science, you'll see a lot of that all through the grades, and even through 5th and 6th grade for some of the higher functioning kids that we have. So we try to have our peers help our students with the content, grade level content, but we allow accommodations and modifications to some of the content to allow them to learn the material but not do as much written work or reading work that's required. They also go to DARE in 6th grade. They attend DARE and they participate as much as possible. And I wanted to share a story about my student that goes to DARE now, and he hates dogs. He's afraid of dogs. But because he went into DARE and he was allowed to sit in the back row wherever he's comfortable, and the canine dog came in. And he sat there perfectly fine, and he just made that connection that this is a good dog, dogs don't hurt us, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to, just highlight that the canine dog visiting our school is a plus. I mean, that helps our students, along with dogs. And then there is also important to make those connections, in real life. They kind of know about the things that's out there, peer pressure, drugs, alcohol, they hear that, they see that on TV. So to be able to have access to the learning about those kinds of things is beneficial to our students as well. Our students in 5th grade attend JA. Well, JA is all through the years, but BizTown. We had our students go to BizTown, and that's very a beneficial experience. Special events, we have, all the holiday parties, they're allowed to go with their peers to attend movie days or special events. I can't think of anything like that. But recently we had Halloween. We had our aide take the students to their classroom, participate in those activities, and walk with their class for the parade.
Everything really varies by child too, just in terms of how much is written in their IEP. Some students are only in your classroom for a very minimal portion of the day. Maybe it's for reading, writing, or math, but then some students spend the majority of their day in your classroom. It's very, very fluid. So.
Yes, and so our parents allow that to happen. So it's very important that we have the staff because we have to stay in our rooms and teach the kids that we have. So our parents are the ones that make that connection to the class.
So here are just a couple pictures that highlight some of our associates working with the students and things like that. And the last thing we want to bring up today that we would be remiss if we didn't mention some of the work that Mrs. Brock does. I know everybody's wearing their Special Olympic shirts over there, and so that's a big part of some of the work that Mrs. Brock's helped with over the years. But the other is that adaptive PE that those students have. So the majority of our students go to PE with their general ed peers, but then we also have an adaptive or modified PE here once every 4 days for the students that really work on that large and fine motor skills. And within those, it's once every 4 days, kind of like I mentioned, but sometimes it ties into the Special Olympics activities, like when basketball rolls around or the track and field events, they work on those there. But sometimes it's just working on different balance, or for one student, an example, we have who has cerebral palsy, who is in a gait trainer and using that as an opportunity to get movement throughout the day and things like that. So I know since I've been here, they've gone to the pool, they've gone to the track, they go out and they perform basketball, and they do a lot of cool things and get a chance to integrate the students in with other activities. So Mrs. Brock does a great job with that. And earlier this year, some of the students visited the pumpkin patch, and that was a picture from one of their field trips they did on that day too. So yeah, do you guys have any questions that our teachers could answer just about our special education programming here?
So we've gotten a lot of new students this year. If you get a new student that receives services from a different district, do you guys have to start from scratch to test them to see where they might be placed in our district and what services we would provide?
We go off the IEP and see if it matches, our district. And then if we have to rewrite the goals, we typically.
Yeah, I'd say most
typically do
scenarios for students in our program, they are identified from birth to 3. So we already have an IEP kind of coming into school. Very rarely do we have a student that would start kindergarten without an IEP. But we do have some instances of that. In fact, I can think of one student this year. And so we were really working as a team to how do we help support that student and then make sure they're getting the right supports. And so it took about 60 days through that evaluation process, but we're finally honing that in for that student. So, but yeah, because of the level of support, most children are identified at an early age that might need some more supports.
Our class is full though, so we would not accept open enrollment students into that. Into any special ed right now, but particularly our level 3s, we don't, because we're generally full.
We didn't take any new ones this year.
So I don't believe we have any
Well, we've
open
had a few
enrollment.
movements, but I'd say, yeah,
The
all 3
move-ins, but not
teachers'
open
caseloads are
enrollment,
pretty full
yeah.
right now, yeah.
Yeah, I knew that you guys were.
I think the best compliment, though, when I think about what a phenomenal job they do, is when I know we've had families specifically move into our district because they wanted the services, they wanted this program specifically at this building, and they chose to buy a house in our district because of the job that they do. So I don't know how that couldn't speak any more highly than this program than that, when families will want to move here. So phenomenal job that you do for our kids.
I will say that's always, when we go on our building tours, Joe, I always enjoy going through your classrooms there and just seeing the innovation that you guys do through there. Like this first year you had that large swing back there, and just the different environments you create in your rooms to provide a safe education place for those students. It's amazing the work that you do.
I know, I love visiting. You guys are amazing. And to Joe's point, that is true. People will move here because of our programs, and we're so proud of it. You guys do a phenomenal job, and there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm you give to these kiddos. And I love how that it's not just one, it's not like a cookie cutter approach. Every kid is individual and unique. Your IEPs, what you do, what you come up with is so creative, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts, what you guys do for our kids. Is there anything you need from us as a board, or anything?
Thank you for everything you give us. You give us what we want, so thank you. Give us all the supplies we want and everything, so thank you. No, you give us all what we ask for, so thank you.
I would just like to add, I think the inclusion that you have with our regular ed kids, with your kids, is fantastic. And I don't think you get enough accolades for what you actually do to those kids. My grandson's one of them, and he thoroughly enjoyed being a part of really Special Olympics, even though that wasn't the whole bit. But to be included and actually be a big brother to some of your kids, I mean, that was something that I saw him growing, and he, to this day, works with those kids whenever possible. So I think you really include those kids as much as possible, and I think we all win. So thank you very much.
It's great. I know, and you're just touching on it, all the stuff you do. I mean, these social skills, and it's a daily thing, and these kiddos look forward to that. The little things mean a lot. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Any other questions or comments?
The last thing I'll add, I do thank Lindsay for coming from the AA, but we also have some other AA people, our PT, our OT, I think I'm missing somebody, but they also do a great job of helping provide services for our students as well. So
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you. Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay. It's hard to move on, that was a great presentation. Our new business, let's talk about the SBRC application. Joe, for the School Budget Review Committee.
So I actually have 3 separate applications, and I don't know why I put them in 2 different board agenda items, but I'm just gonna roll through all 3 of them, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
And I actually need, board approval for each one individually. But it's that time of year where we can make requests to the School Budget Review Committee to gain additional spending authority to help keep those percentages in our general fund up that I talked about earlier. And the first one is for increased enrollment. Our enrollment increased on our October count 41.5 kids, which would allow us to have additional spending authority for $299,920. And this evening I'm asking for approval to make that request to the SBRC.
So Jill, these aren't like special, like when we did the student bill home ones, these are more blanket approval
Yeah,
ones?
blanket approval every year,
Okay.
yeah.
Right. Is there any questions anyone has?
Do you want that motion now, or you want to present all 3?
Each one.
Each one.
Separate.
I make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Do we have to do roll call vote? Is there roll call? Do we
Yeah,
need
maybe.
Roll call.
do we need
No.
a roll call for finance?
You don't?
If it's listed, it does. It needs
Okay.
roll call. Good,
Okay.
thank you for catching that, Mark.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Molly. Okay, Glenn. Kepi?
Aye.
Bergfeld, aye.
Lindemann, aye.
Pratt, aye.
Maxwell, aye.
Would I?
Dittmer, aye. Okay.
So the next one is for LEP instruction beyond 5 years. So we get waiting for kiddos for LEP instruction for up to 5 years. But if we have another eligible student count that would qualify for after that service, we could get additional spending authority. And we had one waiting for $1,517, and I'm asking for the additional spending authority for that this evening as well.
I move we go after the extra.
1,000 and some dollars, 517.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Okay. Roll call, Glenn.
Aye.
Bergfeld, aye.
Lindemann, aye.
Pratt, aye.
Maxwell, aye.
Would I?
Dittmer, aye. Okay, the third one,
So the last one is also for the LEP program. When costs of providing the program exceed the funding that is generated for the program. And after closing out the end of the fiscal year last year, we exceeded the funding that we received by $51,685. So I'm asking for that spending authority for that program.
Kepi, aye.
I second that motion.
roll call.
Aye. Kepi.
Bergfeld, aye.
Lindemann, aye.
Pratt, aye.
Maxwell, aye.
Would I?
Dittmer, aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would like to make a comment. Good
Yes.
job in keeping track of all
Yes.
this stuff.
I guess that letter B might have been helpful.
All right. Any other comments about that? Okay, thank you, Joe. Let's move on to the superintendent's report.
All right, I have a number of things to talk about tonight. One is enrollment reports in there. We're continuing to increase open enrollment. Again, Davenport doesn't have deadlines, so there's always 1 or 2 every so often in the last couple weeks. Not nearly like it was a month ago. I would expect second semester would be another time we could see an influx. For
But
that
until
course.
spring break, right? So
But-
it's-
And then March 1st they can. It's done after March
But
1st.
we do have some full schools, so you.
We have full classrooms,
Full
yeah,
classrooms.
yeah, so they also have to be willing to go to whatever building, but we have capacity at every grade level. Special programs, ELL, special education, we have no room in any of our programs, so at this time for anybody for that.
But if you were in any grade and you were willing to go anywhere, there is room.
Yeah, there's room, yeah, because that's the only denial you can have is space, so. COVID-19, cases were, when I first started doing the report, we were at about 22 cases. A year ago to date, it was 43. So we're 20 cases below where we're at. Now, today we had our first class that hit 4 cases in the classroom, 3 kids with the exact symptoms, a couple of them getting tested. And so we've done our protocol for that. We're a little bit unique since we're on a 2-day week. So we gave parents an option in that classroom whether to come tomorrow or not. I sent everybody an email. And then next week, we'll require masks in that room for the week. That'll get us through. We got a nice long break. Hopefully that is a huge help for us. And then masks, obviously we have waivers that's required, and so we'll still be able to waiver it. I know this building was close within a classroom, just coming in off the weekend. A number of people got tested over the weekend, and cases jumped from 20, it was 22 on Friday to 27 today. But again, a year ago, we saw the exact same thing. In fact, we shot up. We were on a pace where we ended up hitting, I think, 56. And then after Thanksgiving, which we thought, boy, if we're at this at Thanksgiving, what's it going to do after Thanksgiving and Christmas? It really plummeted. And so whether that holds true or not, we'll have to see. So we'll be putting out more information. Obviously, the 5-year-olds to 11-year-olds can be vaccinated. That's, we've talked about that in the past. We've added to our website. Some parents may have a hard time finding it. Well, vaccine.gov, you can click, put your zip code in, and find any place that has openings and stuff. And for that, obviously, if you're sick, stay home, and those type of things. So that's where we're at. We're better than we were a year ago, but obviously, we still are looking for those pockets that we need to address for COVID-19. And then included in the packet was the rough draft for the 2022-23 calendar, potentially. I do have a survey out to the staff. Tonight when I left, there were 259 staff members that had taken the survey. Our next meeting coming up, we'd have a public hearing. We'll introduce the calendar, and then in January we'll have a public hearing and approve the calendar. We always like to give the public plenty of notices. Some things just to point out, August 23rd is the earliest start date by law. So every school next year will start Tuesday, August 23rd, the same as us, because you can't start on Monday the 22nd, it's against state law. We had, looking at whether to do conference day, or our pre-service inventory, pre-service days on Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, or Thursday, Friday, Monday. Majority of people, probably just around 60% is they like to have that Friday off as an option. So that's something. Christmas is much different next year, the holiday break, just because of Sunday being the 2 holidays. It pushes things to midweek, so you end up with a 2-day week to 3-day week to do 2. Probably the biggest things that come out is fall break. People love to see fall break. Some people would say, hey, I'd be willing to go less of a winter break to get a fall break. Some years that works, some years it doesn't work. To do anything major to a calendar, what you do is you're shifting something. You're either taking off less time at winter break, Christmas break, spring break, or something, because in the end we have 178 student days, 2 parent-teacher conference days, 7 in-service days. You start on the 23rd, no earlier than 23rd. There's not a lot of variety to do, and it's so personal. Some people would love to get done on Memorial Day. They want, and for a variety of reasons. Some people don't care if you go into June or late into June. And so that's why we survey the whole staff to look at it, to see, what are things to think about. The fall break, and then snow days, building in snow days into the calendar. Same thing, we could build snow days into the calendar. That means you're gonna take a day off unless you have a snow day. You're just pushing the end of the year back. So what we do instead is say we push the end of the year back if we have a snow day, and do that. And so, but those are probably the 2 most common comments that we have. The other one we were trying to look at is the opening in service. We have so much mandatory training. Some of it can be done online. If people prefer it online, would they prefer it in person? And that's kind of a mix. I think 53% said, hey, I'd do it online some other time between dates versus taking that 2.5 hours up to the beginning of the year. So we're looking at those kind of things. But I wanted to introduce it tonight as my report. We'll put it as a new item, as just information in December, and then January we'll do the public hearing and approve the calendar. Try to do it as soon as we can, especially for people going on spring break, because they like to book their next year's spring break a lot of times, and they know what it is. And our spring break is the same in our district as it is in every district in Scott and now Clinton County. So we've all gotten consistent on that spring break. So
you are recommending early outs for the Blues?
oh, and then the Blues early out to be the other one. And then I think 95% of our staff was in favor of that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the only difference on that. So that's the major difference on that calendar is the adding of, I think it's a total of 10 early outs. Something we've done the last 2 years, and putting them in. We used to do, was it every other Wednesday or one Wednesday a month?
It was one Wednesday a month.
One Wednesday a month when I
Yeah.
first got here, either my first year and second year, or just the first year, I can't remember. Number of districts around us, next year, Pleasant Valley's going to twice a month, the early outs. Some districts are already at my Comanches, every Wednesday is an early out. Bettendorf, every Wednesday? I think they're every Wednesday.
Cowie's every Wednesday.
Who is Cowie? Yeah, so it isn't unusual. Probably the difference is they call them professional development days. This is really the days for our teachers to be able to get work done, and catch up on the meetings, or the time that we pull them doing other things. The labor shortage is not going away. You know, we're not all suddenly gonna have all of our subs that we needed next year. We didn't have them pre-COVID. We're not having them post-COVID, and until something changes, it's a tough position to fill. So until this labor market works out, we anticipate similar circumstances next year that we have this year, that our staff's gonna have to sub for each other. They're gonna have to fill in for duties for each other, because we're gonna be struggling with that. So, and again, when we think about the stress, we think about the work they need to do, giving them that time to do the work is really what we're focused on. We're not saying for them to go home. You know, it's hard to put out every rumor, but I hate the rumor that says, oh, we're just giving them time off. That's not what it's for. It's to give them time to get work done, so then they actually, over the weekend, can have time off, which is tough to do anyway. I mean, a teacher doesn't work just 5 days a week during the school year. They got papers to grade and lots of other things, but we can do our part as a district too. So that's why that's proposed on there.
Yeah, very good.
Joe, where do we stand with hours then, with the 2 hours?
So we're 11:26, so if I
So we
add
have-
10 times, I'd take 20 off of there, so we're still
Still
11:16. We'll still have plenty of
Plenty of
hours.
hours.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And it'd still be this snow day situation, it'd be treated the same.
Correct, it's still treated the same at the end of the year, yeah. We also have hours to work with that too, depending on, you know, how many, if you have a really bad year, everything's on the table, right?
Right.
So, you know, the year we had 5 or 6, you start going, okay, what makes sense to when they end, what else can we do? And so, just hope we don't have snow days. That's what I hope for.
Well, you control that, don't you?
Still a joke.
Yeah.
He ruined that a few years ago.
We all. That one got-
Any
Any other
consideration for
questions?
online? Have we talked about online learning instead of some of these?
We can't. State of Iowa does not allow using online learning in place of counting the school day. It's not
So it's just
legal
a
in the state of
one-year
Iowa.
thing then.
It was just a one-time during the governor's proclamation.
Oh.
After that,
Just
the
that
legislation
script, yeah.
passed it that snow days cannot be made up virtually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a good question though, but
Yeah.
not an option.
Must have been a different state, because I heard it recently. must have been a
Illinois
different
does.
state.
Many states do.
Illinois.
Minnesota
Oh,
does.
Yeah,
does, okay.
Illinois does.
Right.
Illinois, they can do
Yeah.
virtual days. We
Okay.
cannot. No.
All right.
You're
It'd be nice
Um,
if the start dates
Support
shifted
that.
too.
so anything else on the calendar?
Can you move August 23rd?
Nope, can't move August 23rd either.
Just thought I'd
That's a
ask.
long-
I originally put it in my mind, it was you could always start the Monday of it, so I was asking a question on that, and then I was talking to the superintendents, and they're like, none of us can start on Monday, it's 23rd. And then I looked up the law, thinking, no, it's the week of the 24th. No, it's the 23rd. 23rd's the earliest. So,
Yeah, I think the high schoolers really feel that, because now their tests are pushed after the holiday, right?
Mhm.
So, there's not a whole lot of relaxing, I don't think, that goes on during the holiday when you got finals when you come back.
correct,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Any other questions on calendar? So the Y update, if you notice, the pool steel roof is on, the decking is on, and so in the next week or so, what you're gonna see is, the roofing company coming in, but they'll start digging the pool out, and they'll use that as backfill. So that's exciting, that they're digging the pool out and doing that. They moved over to the other part, in the center of the building's a cement floor. They put the precast cement hollow core. And that's actually going on. I saw the semi come in today, then they'll move and start putting the steel into the gym area. And so they'll work their way over and then work their way south. In the next 2 weeks, all the steel should be in, the steel decking, the roofing going on, and so they'll start closing up the building. They're gonna start pouring, hopefully, in the first week of December, start actually pouring the different parts of the pool area. Because there's a mechanical room down below, so there's a basement that they'll pour, and then there's support. So there'll be cement, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, will start flowing into that building. So it's exciting on the pace that we knew we've been at now, next July, August for completion. There is a video coming out, I don't think we put it out yet, that Russell has done of, oh, it was out,
Yeah.
okay.
They put it out.
They put it out,
Yeah.
Russell
Yeah,
did,
yeah.
We're gonna be putting it out so our public
Russell
can
put
see
it
it
out.
too.
Yeah.
Great
Nice.
video to show you the time lapse of it, it's very neat.
Okay, I'll put it out tomorrow.
There we go.
Cut and paste.
The future valuations, I've talked to somebody about this, but Amazon, I did ask on Friday in Rotary, we had the economic development there, and Amazon was not TIF'd. And that is huge, because that means the full valuation of Amazon, once they're up and running, just like a house, the first year it's a year behind. But that's a potential estimated to be $183 million of valuation. And that's where I was with Don last Friday, he's like, that's 15%. It's a huge increase. Now, it doesn't increase our budget huge in general budget for sure. What it does is lower taxes. It does help Pebble, does help Pearl, because that's based off of valuation. So we will have an increase in those areas. But when you look at that, and then you start thinking about when Kraft and Sterilite come out, then you got Speedway gas station, you got Mid-America's headquarters, we got, I think it's the oil, Mojo's Oil is building over there, and which is going, all that is increased valuation for us, which will help keep lowering our taxes and help spreading out our expenses. And so I just wanted to mention that. I was glad to hear that Amazon wasn't TIF'd in the sense of we get that valuation right.
Now, were Kraft and Sterilite,
They're TIF'd, yeah, I think they have like 12 years left. Okay. I always forget how long they've been operating. They were like 15 years TIF'd.
15.
Yeah, at 80%. And so, remember when Kraft came up though, that farmland went from, the valuation from downtown was immediately moved up there at $6 million. And so, right away from Kraft, we did see an increase right away, so that was good. We're planning the board picture before the December board meeting. Looking at Katie, because she's gonna take the pictures. So just giving you kinds of heads up, we'll meet at the high school, probably a half hour, 45 minutes. We'll get that all out to you before that December board meeting.
What was that, December 20th?
December 20th.
20th,
Yeah,
okay.
Monday. It's actually the start of winter break for us, so. Then we get all the pictures, get the website updated and all of that, so. And then remember, there's only one meeting in December, and there's an extra Monday in November, so it really feel like a long time before we actually officially get back together. And so, so that's on there. And then I had convention, just to talk a little bit about the convention from my own perspective. I thought it was a great convention, it was great getting people back together. I think the ones I went to, student, using your students as part of your PR and stuff, I thought was a great one coming from Bondurant. Katie and I talked about that today, as as we grow, as we take her position and we're really building the airplane and flying at the same time with Katie's position is, well, how much more can we do if we end up with a club, or in this case, Shane's not here anymore, but how do we get a class going? Because they have a class at Bondurant. And then, what kind of pieces can we put together? I thought they have a great concept there. I'd love to see it as a Eastern Iowa course that they can actually get credit. And again, another career pathway type of thing. I thought that was good. I thought the meetings that I went to on discourse and, in these times and when we're talking with people and we have these discussions, how can we do it and do it in a way that we stay civil and we're able to work together to when we have issues and all knowing that we're all in it for the same reason, right? Not just us, all of our parents, everybody. We know what's best for kids and to make sure we're approaching it from there. And then I went one on charter schools. Our charter schools right for public schools, because that charter law changed, but it didn't just change so we had private charters coming in there, coming into Iowa. It's also changed for us, and we have the old law for us. Storm Lake presented theirs. They have a charter school. They're only one of two left, and I keep wondering how do you financially afford to do it? Their charter school is for fifth-year seniors. And so they have a very high ELL population, and they're trying to target first generations to go to college. So they're basically retaining them for one, very similar that we do for our special ed students in our Project Search and some other programs, very similar to that. Well, they're doing it for any student who chooses to say, well, I'm not gonna graduate in 4 years, I'm gonna take college courses my 5th year. And that's their charter school. So, well, that's interesting. Well, I'm not sure you want us all doing that, because now State of Iowa's gonna pay 5 years for kids, but I think there are things that we have to watch how this changes and is charters. But it was just really interesting hearing that their district, and again, they're targeting first generation students who may not go on to college, and providing extra support, extra counseling, and things, so it's much deeper than that. But there are different ways to look at charters from a public school perspective. And so the other thing I learned during that meeting is any private charter has to offer special education, ELL services, and all that. Most states don't require them to offer those services, because we just talked about a $400,000 deficit in special ed. For-profit companies who want to run charters want to make money. You can't make money providing special ed services, and so many states, that's why they don't require them to do it. State of Iowa requires them for all kids to have a chance to go to their charters. Means you have to offer those services, and so that's big for us too. So people have to really think about starting a charter, is how will that work and how will you do all these things. So that was my report, total report. I know there were a number of board members who also wanted to mention.
Yeah. So any questions for Joe on anything that he brought up tonight? Let's hear from each other as far as what else you thought you gained from the convention. I know, Glenn, would you like to say anything about when you went?
Yeah, I think it was Pleasant Valley. They talked about how to get information that's negative, I guess, into the right hands, and how should you handle it, and to come out positive. It was interesting. We went through the same thing, so it was a little bit like home.
That was good. Okay, thanks, Glenn. Mark, you went?
To kind of tag on to Joe's, I went with him to the bond grant for our media thing, and that was really neat. Like, they're almost like a small scale production company that they have there, and they even actually start at the junior high level and have, was it 2 classes? I think,
Yeah, they have a 7th grade elective and an 8th grade elective, because they're building the skill sets for when they do this class in high school that runs their social media, or runs a social media. It's primarily the district's social media, streaming their sporting events, different things like that.
So it was just really neat to, and a couple of questions. Coach and I was sitting next to Joe, so I asked, how much does it cost? Because I felt obligated to do that on Joe's behalf, and it was, it can very minimal amount of effort, because with phone technology as anymore, you can get a lot of video capture with your phone. And the other thing I liked about it too was kids were talking and building up other kids, and so the kids just picked who they wanted to do the stories on. They did newscasts once a month or whatever, and did all the graphics work and everything else. So it was just really neat to see.
Did kids come to speak to
Yeah,
you guys?
two-
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
there were
nice.
2
Yeah.
kids. Yeah, they use Canva. Canva, did I say it right? Canva's a free program to produce things, so that would use Adobe Premiere, which all of us, we have license for Adobe Premiere, so you wouldn't have to buy those. There was another program they spent like $500 a year on. That was part of their video editing, or something with videoing. But they didn't really, and he said maybe $2,000 worth of equipment we purchased. So they're really doing it from a low budget. But what was really impressive is that one girl talked about being hired by a local business because they saw what they were doing on social media and they wanted a presence on social media. Again, it's a career pathway, right? It led to her getting a side job because they saw the graphics she was doing, they knew what she could do, and she got it. It's impressive. And now they bit off more than they could chew too.
Oh,
they're
totally.
like, we're only 15 kids, Same as Katie's only one person, and so I think about, well, how do you do it? How do you do what we're doing? Plus, how can we put those kind of pieces in place so you just have more capacity for people to do more? So.
I think there's a lot that feeds in the learning experience of, now kids who would post anything, take a step back and because they're the ones posting, right? And kind of get into that world too, and then meeting or spotlighting other kids that are different from them. I just think the skills is one piece, but the learning that could go around that
That's
is,
true.
I think, much greater.
They really push saying, well, what's about the quality? Well, our peers are all gonna see it. So we don't wanna put out anything. So yes, the teacher's the final, okay, you can post it, and he posts, but in the end, they know it's real world publishing. They're gonna be critiqued, isn't about the grade they're gonna get. It's about their peers reviewing what they're doing, because that's their goal is to have people see this, so. Yeah, I think they said that 2 or 3 times. You
Right.
know, the motivation is you're gonna do it right, and you're gonna do a great job, because this is real world. It's going live. You don't get to take it back.
Right. That's interesting. Really good to
And
hear.
then one other session I went to was interesting, was public engagement. So we had a lot of communications directors, and I'll get you the contact info, Katie, too, about telling board members and superintendents how to address, like, what we call the grocery store walk-ups in the community and whatnot, and the
Yeah.
messaging that we do as a board. And, you know, we always work on that and can always improve in that, but just kind of trying to avoid some of the gotcha moments, or just, you know,
Yeah,
so.
that's good.
The
It
first
was
session Mark
interesting.
and I walked into, and Joni walked into, all the chairs were in just round circles. It's, all right, what activity we gonna do? Are we holding hands, singing Kumbaya?
Yeah, we almost
But
walked out.
actually, I thought that speaker
Yeah.
could have easily been the keynote.
Oh,
very
yes.
easily.
He was
Very
very
good.
good,
He was
and that actually was a really good, even though you walked in a little nervous thinking,
Right.
there's no tables, you're in about groups of 10 facing each other, you're like, oh boy. But it was really good, and then we were able to hear from other districts sitting in that group. I thought
Right.
that,
That's good.
like I said, he should have been the keynote.
He should have. Did you go to the second one?
And then I went to the second
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
He repeated a lot on the second
Yeah.
one, but some new stuff.
Yeah, that's good. John?
Yeah, I went to the charter schools with Joe, and he pretty much covered up what was done. And there was always a concern of, you know, are we going to have a lot of charter schools coming on? And because of the special, they have to provide special ed and everything else, I don't see that really as a big point. One of the points in the opening person, he talked a lot about the impact of teachers on students, and that is by far the biggest thing a school can do, is to have high quality teachers. That impacts the students the most. One of the ones that I got a lot out of is, as you all know, I serve on the governor's STEM council, and there was a STEM in the open session where you could walk around, and there was a STEM display. And we talked a lot about that, and just a few aisles over, there was a lot of STEM technology where there was a robot that looked like a dog and other things. And so I was able to talk about bringing some of that together and that technology, and possibly doing that in some schools as well. So I got a lot out of the STEM piece of it. So.
Okay, thanks, John.
My turn. It was interesting just to, I guess, network with other newbies. I went to one session that was for newbies, and a lot of the material was, I'm sorry, it was kind of old, and yeah, I've kind of been through that, but we had
Right.
round tables too. And 2 of the newbies that I sat with were from Fairfield, and they brought up their experience of being elected and then having the incident that they had with their one teacher and 2 kids. And I actually sat and talked to them probably for a half hour afterwards, saying, well, this is what I know North Scott would be doing on something of that nature. One of the things is that they didn't have one person giving out the details. They had a couple people out there, so they got feedback from that. And now what are they going to do? So it was interesting. That's basically just to network with those 2 guys. So we shared information. So I'm anticipating a phone call or an email. Went one with Joe. Again, Joe, well, he said this earlier, and he said this earlier. Well, that was fine. And then I have to say, I really enjoyed, it was Council Bluffs. They shared how they evaluate the superintendent. So board members, I'm going to get you together sometime and just share what I know it's something that Joe goes through, but they say they do it on a regular basis. It's not just one full-blown evaluation at the end of the year. It's a continuous thing, so I know that we're doing it right. So it was good.
Yeah.
Northcott does a lot of things very, very well, and I think here again, we need to get that out there. We need to toot our own horn.
That's right. Thank you, Frank. Yeah, that's the gist of what I got out of the, many times when you go to these conferences, you get what we're doing right and knowing we're doing good things well. I went to the PV one too, and I actually feel we're handling things. They had a couple of things that were happening to them that were very concerning, of course, and we have the practice of allowing people to talk at the board meetings for citizen communication, and we actually encourage that people to come forward and send us emails or talk to us, and they were talking about that. They had to possibly escort somebody out via police, and it's like, okay, we didn't get into that, and we're not going to get into that, and I feel really proud about our community in that way. But overall, the networking it's always a lot of fun to network and talk to different people. There's a lot of excitement there. Trina, you went. Is there anything you'd like to say?
I agree with a lot of you guys' statements as far as the networking. It's just nice to hear what other people are doing and how they're handling, different things. One of the sessions that I went to, there was an attorney, and just some of the legalities of what we're doing and how we should do it. And so I really enjoyed it. It was a really great experience.
Good.
Yeah,
Thanks, Trina.
Some examples, Trina and I were talking right before she left, boards get to choose when to meet. Like she said, one board chooses 6 a.m. in the morning. It's like, and you can legally do that. I'm going, yeah, but we always think about when it's in the public. And so for us, we've always been evenings, but you can do noons. There's some that we meet at lunchtime. Every organization is a little bit different. And so, I think I look at the School Board Association and how valuable they are as a tool, but the time that we spend down there, not only going to sessions that relate to exactly what we're doing in many schools, and we've done it in the past, we've presented on board evaluation in the past, and there's a number of things the school board would love us to talk about there, but you're getting to sit down with other schools, actually what they're doing and putting themselves out there, and then the ability just to have that time with each other and time talking to other school board members. The networking is huge, so I appreciate everybody taking the time to do that, because it is a big commitment.
Yeah.
Many of you gotta take a vacation in order to do those things and give up work, so we appreciate all the time you give up away from your families and work to be able to go to the convention. And not every districts do it. Sometimes you only see one, and some districts don't ever attend, and so it's a lot, so thank you.
Well, thanks for allowing us to go. That was
Yeah.
really enjoyable. Okay, one final thing, unless somebody has other comments they'd like to make.
I just have one.
Oh, sure, Tracy.
Really quick, I just wanted to express my family's gratitude for all of the wonderful support and comments regarding the passing of my father-in-law, Dr. Arnold Lindeman, who was a part of North Scott for years and years. He was a great man, he was a great educator, and he loved North Scott. So thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you for saying that, Tracy. He was a great man and did a lot for the district. So, yeah, thanks for talking about that, because you had a tough week. You really have. And welcome to Frank.
Welcome,
being on
Frank.
board.
Thank you.
Frank.
Thank you.
Glad
First meeting,
Sworn
it's
in
like
now.
you've been here. You know exactly what to ask, so we're happy to have you here. All right, any other comments anybody wants to say?
How's your knee?
Old. Okay, thank you.
She had a long week. so
Yeah,
over
it's
there.
been a long week.
All right, let's just.
Motion to adjourn. Seconded.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Good night. Thank you for
Good night.
long meeting.
Everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Yes, we do.
Yes, have a nice Thanksgiving.